Okay, so part two in our chat with Darren Ferguson. Obviously, before we get to your appointment, you obviously were managing Preston after you left. Before you said on record, before you learned a heck of a lot during your time at Preston, and I think your first home game was against Chelsea, wasn't it? And then you had some memorable. I think did you come back from like 4-1 down to beat Leeds 6-4 or something ridiculous like that. So, as much as you obviously were only there a short period of time, there were obviously some highs during that period of time as well.
Yeah, it was. I remember at the time, and obviously after I left Peterborough, I had a little bit of time on my hands to think about the job and what I'd done, and I hated it. It was a nightmare time. It was an absolute nightmare. I wasn't ready to come out and have a break or anything. It was nothing about that. I was, and you're trying hard not to look at how people are getting on, but it's impossible, and things like that. It just drove me mad, really. It was a really Saturday afternoons. I used to just go to Rutland and have 3 hours there with the dog, so it was difficult. But I was only out for a short period of time. So, and then Preston came on interested in me, and I did an interview with Preston, and then the same day I had an interview with Sheffield Wednesday. So I thought, okay, I've got a decision to make here. And my decision in my gut was telling me don't take either job. I wasn't convinced by either one. The interviews went great. Then the owner of Preston flew down to Simpson, it was, and then met me at the Haycock. We had another meeting, and I thought, okay, this is a little bit more positive. And they said, look, give us a decision. So I was, honestly, I was in my house, and Clive, my agent at the time, Clive Berlin and Nicola, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to make a choice here. It was difficult. And I just felt, and you should always go where you got feeling, that I just walk away from it. It just didn't feel right, either one, whatever reason. So anyway, I decided to go to Preston, and I thought, I went, and speaking earlier about your first meeting with players, it was in this little small porter cabin. It was dead dingy, and all the players were squashed together. It didn't feel right. It didn't go great. I didn't come across as confident as I wanted to, and that is a pivotal meeting. That it wasn't a disaster, but quite quickly I knew that at Preston, because they'd been near the play. I think they'd been in the playoffs 3 out of the last 5 years. But quite quickly I realised that certain things I was promised wasn't going to happen. In terms of the recruitment, I wanted to go with a younger squad. It was an aging squad, Preston's. But obviously, I wanted to play the way I wanted to play, and there was a struggle. So the initial part was a struggle. It really was. We didn't have a game for about 3 weeks when I first went, and I probably didn't cement my personality on them in that time well enough. But anyway, first game was at Bristol City. We were 1-0 down after a minute. We ended up getting beat 4-2, but with the time they were struggling to score goals, and at least attacking wise, we looked like we'd get a goal. First home game was the cup against Chelsea. We got beat 2-0. And then we had inconsistent results, ups and downs, and it was a bit of a struggle, I've got to be honest, to the end of that season. And then we tried to recruit, obviously, better players for the following season.
And obviously, when you were coming to the end of I don't want to dwell on another club for fairness to them, but obviously, as you come to the end of your time at Preston, which was about a year, I think, I think you left the job in around about December. So, what were you thinking at that point? Were you thinking, I need a lot of time out? Or were you thinking, I want to get straight back in? What was going through your mind?
Well, my thought was, look, in the end at Preston, it was a challenge I was quite enjoying. It was a different challenge. But when I first went in there, I'm not going to spend too long on this, but when I first went in there, I tried to challenge everyone. I tried to take many people on. These were experienced championship players, were on huge salaries, and they didn't really have the motivation I was used to or wanted. But in the end, you could tell that you're one defeat away from getting the job. You can just tell. We went on a run where we didn't lose for 4. We were obviously round about the relegation. So in the end, we got beat. I think it was by Hull. Was it Hull at home in Telly? And Phil Brown was doing the commentary on the television, and a week later he was in my job. So there you go. And I remember getting the call from the chairman at the time, was Maurice Lindsay, and the director. And they said, look, we need to come around to your house and see you. That was it. Done. Finished. And I left that house because we just rented exactly 1 year to the day I moved in, and then got a call from, or an email, I think from the chair, Darren, saying, look, do you want to meet up for a coffee? And Nicola and I were walking the dogs, and I was like, and I was adamant, there's no way I can take a break. I've got to get back in here. I've got to prove to myself that, I can get back on the horse. Went to London, had not spoke to him since I left. Got the train down to London. Rob picked me up in London, went and met him, and we had a bit of a hug and an embrace. And he made the decision, Gary Johnson had gone. And he said, look, I want to bring you back. So I said, fine, let's do it.
I think the thing is as well, when you came back at that time, obviously, because you know a lot of the players and you knew what was existing, and you had probably seen from afar, why it had gone wrong in the championship with the subsequent managers that obviously took the job. Because you came in, I think we were about 9th or 10th, weren't we, in the league, around that sort of period when you came back. Did you feel that there was a real opportunity to sort of build on what the positives were already there?
Yeah, I was fortunate in a way that the club weren't anywhere near relegation. There's still a big chance of getting automatic promotion. And when I met the chairman, we said, I'd outlined my plans and he'd outlined his, and we matched. We both said we need 17 wins to get into the automatic positions. Excuse me. And then I obviously knowing some of the players helped, knowing that I was successful the last time helped, but that didn't mean it was going to be a definite recipe for success again. So I had a lot to prove, and a lot of, the way I left the first time, a lot of fans were a bit unsure about it. I definitely felt that, so regardless of what I'd done before, I had a lot to prove. So the first thing I did when I decided to come back, and I think they got rid of Gary and played the night on a Tuesday night, and I came to watch the game. I didn't take the job till the next day, but it had obviously been agreed. Watched the game with the chairman and the stands.
Brentford game, I think, wasn't it, where David Oldfield was in charge? Was that the game Jonathan Abika scored?
Jonathan Abika scored in the last minute, and it was a 2-1 win.
I'll tell you what it was as well. That was the day that Grant McCann took a penalty and did a Paneka straight down the middle. And when I spoke to him, he said that you said, don't ever do that again, or something along those lines. He said, you take a penalty properly, or some. He said it was the first conversation he had.
I think it probably was. I mean, it was probably a little bit tongue in cheek. But when I went in there, and the first thing I did when I knew I was coming back, I phoned George and said, look, what's the script? And I got a heads up from him. And he said, are you coming back? I went, yeah. And he went, right, okay. So he gave me a bit of a heads up. I said, what about the staff? Because I hadn't worked with the staff. Mark Robson, Barry Richardson. I also knew David Oldfield. And he was very complimentary, and obviously I was bringing Kev back with me as well. So there was all that to add up. But then, when I got working with the squad, I think at the time Tomo was playing wide right. Benno wasn't playing. I think they were playing like 4-2-3-1 at the time. I must say that when I watched the game against Brentford, I thought Grant would struggle. I didn't think Grant could play in a 2. I just didn't get that feeling. My first game was Brighton, and Grant got sent off. And we'd worked on a 4-3-3, and then if it wasn't working, to go a diamond, because I felt, look, I wanted 2 strikers and Tomo up further, and with Craig, and I wanted George playing as a number 10. And I looked at the squad I had, and I felt, well, McCann's strength is on the ball, so I felt that him sitting in front of the back 4 with the legs either side of him, I think it was Rowe and Wes, and sometimes Adam Clayton, but I let Adam Clayton go back at the time. I felt that would work. I felt that all my best players would find a position, and that's what I was trying to do. And so McCann I felt a good position for him, even though Grant hadn't done it. He'd never played that. I mean, probably Grant doesn't know this, but I felt if he played in a 2, he would struggle to be in the team. And he was a big signing for the club. So I had to find a position for him, George, Tomo. And that's how I looked at it. So I said, okay, we're going to go and play a diamond. My first game was Brighton. We got beat 3-1. And we were 2-0 down. Glenn Murray scored a couple. Mm-hmm. No, not Glenn Murray, was it? What was the striker's name? Can't remember. And it was at the old stadium, remember? And then we went 3-0 down a minute after the second half. And then we went to a diamond and we battered them for 20 minutes. Absolutely battered them. Tomo scored, I think, a header. Mm-hmm. We had 2 or 3 great chances, and I thought, right, this is it. I'm playing this way because I know we'll get goals. So we then, I think our first game back at home, I think we beat Colchester 4-0. And we hadn't kept any clean sheet. We were struggling to make sure that we had any clean sheets. And then the players loved it. The players loved the system. And we got the best out of the players I needed to.
You mentioned, obviously, you brought Kevin Russell back and Mark Robson was already there. What was the dynamic like between you as a three? Because I think Mark was first team coach, wasn't he, at that point? And people always say that Mark had a very good eye for detail. Is that a fair description of him as a coach?
So when I spoke to George, I said, look, I asked him about Mark, and he was very complimentary. He said, yeah, he's a very good coach. My first thing I had to do was, before the Brentford game on the Tuesday night, I met some of the staff and said, look, I'm coming in. I had a couple of things that I had to deal with, which could have been issues. One, I'd interviewed Barry Richardson previously for the goalkeeping coach job and didn't give him the job. He felt I hadn't explained to him why. So he may have had a point there, I don't know. So I could see straight away, and Barry, if you know Barry, not to be messed with, he just gives you that stare, and that's what it was. So I spoke to him before the game and I could see there was an issue there. And then I spoke to Mark Robson to say, look, Mark, you're actually not taking the team David Oldfield is. So it was a kicking that really for Robbo. And he was, I could see Robbo wanted to be a manager. And he went and became a manager, and perhaps now that he's done it, he realises that he's better as a coach, which happens a lot. So, and bringing Kev back, and Ben McKenzie, who had obviously had, he thought he was only going to, he'd packed his bags and said, well, you're back now, I'm going to go. And I went, no, you're staying. And then we started working with Kevin Mark. And then I spoke to Barry after that game that night and said, look, if you have any issues, let's get it out of the way. I'm not one for hanging about. And he explained what it was. And I said, look, give this a go. You're going to enjoy it. And because he was like, no, I'm thinking I'm going to go. And I went, look, give it a go. Give it a couple of weeks. And I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy it. And he did. He was brilliant about it. He was a great lad. So we managed to combine it all together. Mark was very detailed in what he did, very organised, excellent on set pieces, put a lot of thought into them. So I had a good staff, and added to Kev's experience and what he brought. So it worked quite well, that.
Yeah, but before we move on, I must mention Kev, because obviously we didn't mention it in the first part, and how instrumental he was, and the relationship, and speaking to particularly some of the attacking players. Obviously Kev worked a lot with them in terms of putting on drills and making it repetitive. What made him and what makes him such a good coach?
He's so enthusiastic, Kev. He's my coach at Wrexham. I thought he was really good then. The first decision I made was, I've got to get Kev with me. I could trust him. He was a good friend, Kev. So he just brought that enthusiasm. He had a good imagination for things. And bearing in mind, when I first got the job, he was doing all the coaching. I hadn't done a great deal. I'd obviously done my badges, but not with a first team group, really. So it was all a bit new to me as well. So he did all the coaching. He put on a lot of good drills. He did it every day, finishing. And these lads were, no disrespect to anyone, these lads were used to doing an hour and gone, and that was the big change. Finishing every day, practices, drills, and the players just, with practice, just got better and better. And in the end, you couldn't get. I many times had to get them off the training ground and say, look, lads, we've got a game in 2 days. You need to rest your legs. And they were like, oh no, we want to do another 15 minutes. So we had them where we wanted them. But yeah, he was very good in that. He had different drills and things like that. And he was very good for me. He was excellent for me.
Just before the playoffs, we played Dagenham at home, and I think we beat them 5-0 or something along those lines. Was that a difficult team selection for you, knowing that we were in the playoffs at that point? Because I think you made several changes, but not wholesale changes. What was your thinking going into that?
So what I'd done was we'd gotten the playoffs at Shrewsbury. We won 4-2, and we were playing the Diamond. And I decided in my mind that I wanted to change formation for some of the remaining games, just to have a little look at something. And without sounding, I don't know how to put this, but I just got a bit bored. So I thought, I'm going to just change formation here, because I'm going to make sure the players are ready for the playoffs. So we went to a 4-3-3, but ended up with Craig sort of playing wide right at times. We went and played Rochdale, and I think we lost or drew. Craig was going for 30 goals. We didn't actually have a great record going into the playoffs. I think the chairman and Barry were getting a bit worried, and I was like, look, these will be ready for the playoffs. I'm not overly interested in these games. I'm just trying a few things in case I need to tweak things in games. So there was a couple of games where we didn't perform very well, and then we got to Dagenham, and if we'd have won, Dagenham were relegated. And I had to pick a team bearing in mind I knew we had Milton Keynes. Oh no, we didn't know we had Milton Keynes. It wasn't Milton Keynes. Who was it? Leyton Orient.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Milton Keynes obviously the playoffs, isn't it? We
what
played.
bit are we at? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. we got. I might be going back to this playoffs before. Sorry, but we the Dagenham game was the last game of the season. We won 5-0. Craig came on after, and I one scored a couple, I think. But Mendes Lang scored a really good goal, the first goal, remember. So we won that game comfortably, and unfortunately, it was John Still at the time, good guy. We relegated Dagenham, you know.
And then obviously the playoffs, the games against MK Dons. Were you happy it was MK Dons in the semi-finals? I mean, speaking to most of the players, they didn't really care who they were playing because they had such belief they were going to get the job done. Did you care really how the playoff sort of picture worked?
Yeah, I wanted MK Dons because I knew our system would give them problems. And I knew Carl and he wouldn't change. So I was, sometimes the manager, you think, well, they could do this or that. And Carl, like myself, stuck to his philosophies, and he's quite rightly a good manager, obviously. So I remember going into that game and we played, I changed something. I played Tomlin on the right of the diamond because I wanted him playing against Lewington, and I played Mendes Lang through the middle because I had real pace then with Mendes Lang and Craig. And we did a lot of work going into the game and video stuff on the cutbacks in terms of they always dropped really deep, the back four Milton Keynes. We scored our first goal a bit like that, and it was quite early. I think it was about 15 minutes in. And we thought, okay, we're in business here. And then we got really sloppy. And then 5 minutes before halftime, we got Gabby injured and Joe Lewis injured. But going into the game, I was very, very confident, and the players were, that we'd win the game. We felt that we had Milton Keynes' number a little bit, but we knew that we had to play very well to win the game, but we were confident going into it. So, of course, we all know how the game transpired in terms of there was 5 minutes before halftime gave me a problem because Joe had to come off and Gabby came off.
Yeah, just before you mention the next bit, Joe Lewis actually said in his interview that obviously he played on for quite a while after his injury, but he said the worst thing about it was having to tell you that he had to come on because obviously he was, you know, someone who wanted to stay on as long as possible, and that was the worst part for him, was explaining to you that he couldn't continue. Can you remember that conversation?
Yeah, because it's a huge dressing room at Milton Keynes, but I do remember it in terms of where we were in the dressing room. He said he got injured, and I think for 15 minutes he played on, something like that, and he managed to hobble on through. And of course, Kev was like, he's struggling now, and I was like, he's fine. You get Joe will get through it, you know. And at halftime, I was thinking, you'll be all right. And I think it kind of went, yeah. And then he said, nah, I can't. I just can't. I think the physio said, look, I was like, I've got to make 2 substitutions here. So Paul Jones came in. And within about 15 minutes of the second half, we were absolutely battered. We lost a soft goal, and then they just ran riot. We were all over the place. We lost all our discipline. Charlie got sent off. So we're 3-1 down with 10 men. Baldock goes through. He was on fire that season. And it's a sitter for him. And it's 4-1 in the game. It's done. You're out. And he missed a sitter at 3-1. That was a turning point. And then Litz makes his 60-yard dash up the park. And Little was our best player that day by miles. He was fantastic, and I said he's just got you promoted, because I felt that went 3-2. And listen, it sounds confident to other people now, but that's how I would speak to my players. Look, that goal's going to get us up, you know, because I had to get them confident again straight away. So Litz has ran through, and Gleeson brings him down. And Gleeson was a player I tried to sign twice, but he brings him down outside the box. Ref gives a penalty, sends Gleeson off. Gleeson was their best player. So I'm thinking, Christ, we've got a break here. And Macca steps up and takes a penalty, calm as you like. He was outstanding in the playoffs. Fantastic he was. One thing I'd say about Grant, he was brilliant in the big games. Macca, you could always know that he'd play well in the big games. But he took the penalty 3-2. And then I'm thinking, okay, we're going to nick another one here because all the momentum was with us. And we had an unbelievable crowd. I remember that one thing I do remember, getting off the bus at Milton Keynes, I'll never forget it. The reception we got for the fans was like you goosebumps. It was fantastic. And anyway, we went into the game and we ended the game 3-2. We got a break. We got a break. But I remember thinking, we've got a right chance now. So
it's strange, isn't it? Because as I say, so many players, you talk about that second leg, and they talk about three things. One, how incredible the atmosphere was. Two, how they had no waver whatsoever that they were going to win the game. And three, the thing that probably gets overlooked is James Wesolowski's tackle, where he obviously legs it back. Of those three things, I mean, as a manager, how confident were you that you were going to turn it around? And I suppose, performance-wise, did you get to the level that you were expecting?
It's one of the best performances I've had, given the magnitude of the game. So there's a couple of things we did. One, we did a motivational video for them to the one and only Adele, which worked. It worked. And the other one was we tweaked something tactically that we didn't want to show them inside the pitch. We wanted to show them outside the pitch all the time and keep them down one side. And that worked to a T, because we wanted to make sure when their fullbacks had it, because they just played the one striker, our fullbacks could go right in against our wide players and keep them down one side. So we did that. And to be fair, Grant Basie came in, it was outstanding the night, and Litz, and they just kept going in against the wide players. We kept getting the ball back. And Grant scored his free kick. But going into the game, I was confident. And I said to the players, look, we need to get the first goal, but that might be 75 minutes. Don't worry about it if it's 75 minutes. Once we get the first goal, that's fine. But the players were outstanding. I think, if I'm going to be honest, I think Milton Keynes were surprised by how well we played. I think when we won 1-0 up, I think they just thought, we've got no chance here. Because Gleeson had got his red card rescinded, so he played. And we just had too much for them. The energy of the players, the crowd, it was an unbelievable performance. And 2 was very, very fair to Milton Keynes. It could have been 6. We absolutely battered. The performance was outstanding. And Wes, I left Mendes out and put Wes in the right. And I'd made a mistake the previous game, so I rectified that. And Wes played, he was outstanding. And we're 1-0 up. With Macca's taking a free kick and he's hit the wall, and I'm screaming at Macca, missed the wall, because they were good on the counter-attack. Powell's counter-attacked, and you're thinking he's just about to score here. And Wes has come 60-yard run, and that won us the game, that tackle. And then obviously Craig scored a second. Well, that might even been at 2-0, I can't remember. But it was an unbelievable tackle, and one I'll always remember. So, yeah, it was a great night because the atmosphere, the performance. I'd been at the Huddersfield-Bournemouth game the night before, and obviously Huddersfield had got through in penalties. And I felt with that performance, if it had been Lee Clark, I'd have been thinking, we're in for a right game in the final now.
That Adele song, at what point did you think that would work? Because I remember you coming into the office and saying, right, this is the track we're going to use. We're going to play it over. And I heard it the first time and I thought, oof, really? I mean, because obviously without the pictures, you're just hearing the song. How did you plan that? Was that something you listened to quite a lot prior to it? And how did you end up thinking it'd work?
So I remember thinking we need a motivational video. I don't know if I'd done. I then went on and done quite a few after that, but I don't think I'd done one up to that point.
Yeah.
I don't think I had any.
I don't remember doing any.
So I had to do something. I had to do something that really meant something to the players. And obviously I needed help with that, with you guys helping me putting the collection of things to the song. So I was just listening to the Adele's album one night, and that song came on, and I must have listened to it about, I don't know how many times, lots of times. And it just, the words, I'm thinking, I'm seeing the players and the words, and I'm thinking, this will work. So I've come in and I've gone to you guys, this is it. And because we were talking about it previously, saying we've got to get the right song for it. And I think you were all like, Adele, this is not going to go down well with the players. But I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's some video. I mean, it was fantastic. It really was.
And the thing about it is, again, you speak to players now, speak to Lee Tomlin. What do you remember about the playoffs? Adele. That song stayed with them, and I guess that's the idea, isn't it? It creates a long-lasting memory, but it really did. When you have 30 or 25 players sitting there watching a video, you want all 25 engaged, and all 25 were engaged, weren't they?
They were. We made sure we got every single player on it. My worry was it was going to be too emotional. I was worried that they were going to be too emotional going into the game, because it was a powerful video. You know, the scenes in it, yeah, as you know, and with the music, it really got you. But no, it worked. I'm glad it did, because the players just flew out the dressing room, and we showed it again at Old Trafford before the final. And it's dangerous to do it again, but it worked again. The players were almost like, come on, we want it again. So it worked, and I was glad it did. And you know, it helped. It definitely helped.
A lot of the players may well have been thinking, oh, I wish it was at Wembley, the final. It almost felt perfect that it was at Old Trafford. Did you get everything right in terms of the preparation as well? Because, you know, obviously you were up all weekend. You were able to watch the League Two playoff. You watched the Man United game on the Saturday night, albeit it didn't go as well as planned. Did you get the whole preparation for that final spot on?
Well, what we did then, because there was a 10-day gap, was there, between beating Milton Keynes? We did straight away. I said, right, we've got to get the right hotel. So, in the area, I booked a Marriott. The chairman was great. He just went, yeah, do what you want. I then spoke to my dad and said, look, can we use Carrington for 3 days? And he went, yeah, of course. So we had the base and we had the training facilities and we had the pitches, and you know, to be at Carrington was fantastic. So we were lucky there. Then obviously any team, as a team, you could go and visit Old Trafford before the game. That was for both teams, which is a norm for the playoffs. You can go and visit the stadium. I think we went 2 days before. I spoke to the groundsman and he said, how do you want the pitch? I went, get it as quick as you possibly can. So we had a couple of advantages in terms of we stayed there. Huddersfield went there totally a different way. They just came on the day. So they downplayed it. We got suits and we thought, okay, we're going to go for it. And I'll be honest, I didn't really think about Old Trafford and all the connections until probably 2 days before I walked out and I thought, okay, this, you know, I played there and watched my dad be very successful there. I think maybe what took the game off my mind was because he had his European Cup final. So when you're, how can I put it? When you're the member of the family that's not actually in the game, you're more thinking, I hope he wins, and you know what I mean? So I took my mind right off it. So the night before, obviously, we'd watched League Two. We'd prepared very well. There was a lot of stuff for the players to do. We'd gone for a game of golf. So the preparation was bang on. There was no excuses. And then we got to the night before, we watched the final. Barcelona won comfortably. Tom was jumping up and down. He was the only one. Litz had his United kit on because Litz are biggie red.
Tom had a bench, didn't he?
Nah, he just Tom could be like that. So it goes to 3-1, and I was right at the back of the group, and so I just went to bed. So I said, that's me. And the lads, I just turned around and went, not as huff, but just thought, well, it's done, the game's done. So I went to bed and it was quite late. You wake up the next morning thinking, okay, this is it now. So it started to take my mind off it a little bit, which was good.
Obviously, Jordan Rhodes didn't play for Huddersfield. Honestly, were you delighted, happy, pleased, shocked?
So we went to the game, having enough time to prepare for it. We played them twice. And we'd played them at Huddersfield, at their place, and we drew 1-1, and we caused them all sorts of problems. And the team sheet came in, and Rhodes had scored about 30 goals that season, I think. And I just said to the players, there's a team sheet that says it all. They're absolutely petrified of us. They've left the top scorer in the league out. Or maybe Craig was ahead of them, but their top scorer. That says it all. They're worried. So they went one up front and two wide. They played 4-3-3, which suited our shape a bit even more. But the game was very, wasn't much to it, to be honest. They had a period where they came on strong. And you're thinking when it gets to the period of the game, it could be extra time. You start thinking about who looks tired, substitutions. But I was very calm through the whole game. And of course, Grant scored. And then when Grant scores, Tommy scored, off Grant's brilliant free kick. And then they kick off and we scored again. And you're like, this is unbelievable. And then Maka rounds it off with a superb. What a free kick that was. And the game over within 8 minutes, is it? 7 minutes? The game was done.
Were you talking about that? Obviously, the celebration on the third goal reminded me very much of Brian Kidd and your dad running on the pitch. And it was sort of, I mean, Ben McKenzie was probably Brian Kidd, but I mean, it obviously an outpouring of emotion that you can't stop yourself from doing something like that. Yeah,
the first goal I was very calm with. Second goal, I got very excited. And then the third goal, I think Maka jumped over my head. He went out. Everyone was berserk. Everyone came together. And that's how it should be. It was it was a long season. I think Huddersfield were favourites going into the final. They'd been on a really long unbeaten run. They'd taken 40,000 fans. There was a certain confidence that they felt. But my players performed. Gabby and Benno, where I was standing, they were fantastic. So it was a great day for us.
I spoke to Grant Basie yesterday, actually, and I said to him, were you expecting to start in the final? Obviously, given the fact that he played in the semi-final second leg with Charlie being suspended. And he said you told him on I think it was a Thursday, that he was going to start. Was that a difficult decision for you? Because I'd imagine that was the only real tactical thing in your mind or positional thing in your mind where you might have had a decision to make?
That was the only decision I had to make, whether I started Grant again or I played Charlie. And Grant had played that well in the semi-final against Powell, I think it was. I thought, I can't drop him. And because I going into the second leg, Grant had hardly played. I was worried. I thought, I hope Grant just doesn't. He was nervous. I could see he was quite a great lad. By the way, I've seen him since. Great lad. But he performed that well. I thought, I've got every confidence he'll do it again. So I said to Charlie, I remember at Carrington, I'd told Grant, I said, look, don't tell anyone. And I didn't want to tell him on the day before because I wanted to give him a lot of time to think, okay, I'm playing. So I said, look, Grant, you're playing. You're definitely playing. He was like, oh, great. I said, so he gives plenty of time to just calm down and, And I told Charlie, I think the day before. And Charlie, I was thinking, I wonder what Charlie was brilliant. He was like, yeah, totally agree. No problem. And Charlie came on, I think, for 20 minutes. So, yeah, it just showed what Charlie was all about. He was a good lad.
Moving away from that game and obviously into the championship campaign, I guess from you personally, you were thinking, right, I've had a taste of what this is like to go from this division to the championship. Did that give you a little bit more of a steer in terms of what you needed to make sure that it weren't being overrun as quickly as it was previously?
Yeah, we'd had you have to learn from, you always learn from mistakes. And at the period, first time at Peterborough, the period at Preston, I obviously knew the championship a lot better. I felt we could hold our own. We added some players, didn't we? And I think we did very well in the first part of the season. We faded away towards the end in our first season, but the plan was to gradually build into the championship. As in, first aim was to just stay in the league, don't get relegated. Second season was to continue improving, and then maybe the third season, we can maybe try and get closer, unbelievably, to the playoffs or something. And it would have gone that way. And the first part of the season we were very, very good. Second part of the season we faded. We got beat by Southampton at home, battered by Southampton, who were an excellent team. But other results went for us, and that was us. We remained in the league.
I think it might have been November, December. I think we played Leeds, didn't we? And Tomo got sent off. I think Leeds scored, and I think Leeds obviously scored very late in that game to win it. And I think if we'd have won that game, we'd have probably gone second or third in the Championship, which says how well we'd done in that early part of the campaign. Was it hard to keep the players level-headed at that point, or were you just letting them go out and express themselves?
I was. They weren't. You'd see signs of they're getting too carried away. You'd let them go with it. At that point, I think it was October time, and the game was early. It was an early kickoff, and if we'd have won, we'd have gone second. And Leeds played it. The match was up. They hadn't played a diamond, and Simon Grayson played a diamond. Snodgrass, don't think played. And I thought, well, that's a compliment to us. The matching is up. So these little things help the players in their confidence. And we started the game. We won 1-0 up. I think Gabby scored a header.
Yeah, I think yeah.
No. Tell a lie. They went 1-0 up. They scored quite early. I think McCormack scored, and then Gabby equalised, and then Tomo did something absolutely stupid. And we went down to 10 men before half time. And then they didn't cause us too many problems. They didn't really, I remember they didn't really kill us off. And then obviously they scored. Clayton scored, didn't he? Mm. A 20-yarder at 2-1. And it wasn't that long to go. And then Litz scored a goal from nowhere with like 3 minutes to go or something, wasn't there? And we got a corner after it, and I thought, we're going to win this. And then all of a sudden, the referee says there's 4 minutes or something, and the fourth official says to me, time's up. And he played another 30 seconds. I remember the game after the game, I was going crazy. And they've lobbed it in the box, and somebody scored a worldie, and we got beat. And then we would have gone second. And we deserved to get something out of that game, there's no doubt.
Yeah, as you say, you stayed up comfortably in that season. What were the conversations in the summer going into the second Championship campaign? Was it a case of, right, we know what to expect, this is what I need, or was it more of the same?
I think it was, no, we wanted to progress each season. We definitely did. We wanted to have a progression that season, to not just be hanging on in there to survive. We wanted to see a clear progression, perhaps into a more comfortable mid-table sort of area, perhaps even if we could get to the playoffs. But of course, the season started and we lost our first 7 games. And obviously at that point, I remember at the meeting with the chairman, he'd bought some offices in Peterborough, if you remember. And you think, well, you've lost 7 games, you're under a wee bit of pressure, which I felt. And I had about an hour with him, and he was absolutely brilliant. He said, look, whatever happens, I'm not going to get rid of you. You've lost a bit of confidence, you need to get it back. I said, I'm fully behind you. He was very good. When you got an unexpected thing like that, it does pick you up, and it did. Anyway, we went to Hull, who were top of the league, and played 3 at the back. And Hull played 3 at the back, so I said, right, I'm going to match them up. Tommy Rowe played wing back, and Emil Sinclair and Tyrone Barnett played up front. And we just sat off them. We played a counter-attack game, and Emil destroyed them. And we won. Then we went to Barnsley on the Tuesday night, and we won 2-0. And Barnett's got a great talent. Barnett's got a great header. And I think Boyd scored the other one. Anyway, from not winning 7 games, we won 2 in the bounce. I think we were only 3 points out of getting out of the relegation, because other teams had struggled. Barnes had been one of them. And then we just kicked on. And we were still in the relegation mix, but the second half of the season, I think the stats show that we were about 3rd in the second half of the season. Yeah.
I think the game, we beat Sheffield Wednesday towards the end of that campaign. I think Grant scored a free kick at home, and everyone was buoyant, and everyone was thinking, that's it, that's everything's done and dusted. What was the mindset like for you at that point? Well,
we'd gone to the Sheffield Wednesday game, which I think we were 5 o'clock kickoff. We were on telly, and Hull were playing Barnsley. So if Hull were going for an automatic. So if Hull had beat Barnsley and we'd won like we did, that was us safe. And Hull were, I spoke to Brucey about it, Hull were horrendous and got beat 2-0 at Barnsley. So we know we had to win. So Macca scores a free kick. It gets a bit nervy toward the end and we hang on. So we are again out of the relegation. So we know it's now going down to the last game. Knowing it's enough, the fate's in our hands. So we were thinking, no, we didn't think, oh, that's it done. But there was so many permutations to what had to happen. We always felt confident that we'd come out with at least one on our side. When we went into the Palace game, I went and watched them against Millwall on the Tuesday night. And if they beat Millwall, they were in the playoffs. So I'm thinking, I hope Palace win, because they might rest some players. Millwall beat them. So you're thinking, Christ, they're going to have their full hit. And they need a result to make sure they're in the playoffs. And they were going through a bad run. Ian Holloway had just come back not that long ago, and they'd hit a bad run. So we go into the game thinking, yeah, we're confident, but we're going to have to play very well, and you need a bit of luck. You know that. And I remember the game, Tomo scored a worldie. Gabby made a mistake and they equalised, but we're well on top. We get to half-time. Mendes scores. So now we know the result was drawn. So I think it meant we had to lose. So you're thinking, they've got to score twice. We had an opportunity, I think Mendes again, to make it 3-1 and kill the game off. But you're still thinking, okay, it's in our hands. And then Phillips comes on, and you think, okay, and he scores. So now we're 2 each, and Barnsley and Huddersfield are 2 each. So you're thinking, well, we need to either score or make sure we don't concede. And we'd obviously brought Gailey in, who flew, and we had Tomo. And looking back, I think to myself, should I have brought Tyrone on for set pieces because of his height? And Jedinak stood in the box on his own, and Kev's in the upstairs, Kevin Russell, screaming, no one's on Jedinak, no one's on Jedinak. And obviously Jedinak's got him at. I can't mind who it was. I don't want to blame anyone, so I can't remember. Anyway, the ball comes over and Jedinak scores, and that's it. And I'll be honest, when the ball hit the net, my whole inside just completely, not actually literally, but my stomach just went. It was finished. We didn't have anything after that. And obviously after the game, we got told Huddersfield and Barnsley just stopped playing. They knew we were getting beat. And that was poor stuff from them. And that was us finished. We were down.
I remember after the game, probably the worst ground you could possibly do post-match media in, because you had to go through a concourse to get to the room, and Palace fans were all jubilant. And then obviously the last thing you want to be doing when a situation like that has happened is talking to the media. And I'd imagine that so many things were going through your mind at that point.
Well, yeah, we had a situation after the game where in the dressing room, there was complete silence for 30 minutes. Not a word was said. And I'm thinking in my head, whatever I say is not going to make a difference here, I don't think. So after 30 minutes, I stood up and went, let's go. Let's get in the shower and let's leave. No one had the press to do. So I knew we were all going back on to Peterborough. So I felt that I needed to give myself time and said to the players, look, we'll speak when we get back to the ground. So that was that. But I remember the 30-minute silence. It was eerie. It was devastating, really, for what happened. And then I went up to do the press, and I remember we had to go all the way up. And I to be honest, I look back at that and I regret that press conference. I got that wrong. I was very sort of down and spoke a lot about the following season when I shouldn't have, and I should have handled that better. I look back at that and think I should have handled that press conference better, or perhaps given myself more time to do it, if you know what I mean. Because at the end of the day, I'm the manager and I'm the one that has to lead the team. And if I watch that back as a player, I'd think, well, he doesn't look very confident about next season. So I handled that wrong. Anyway, then I spoke to the chairman. We got back on the bus. Obviously rang home and things. And Kevin, his wife, came back to mine. And it just felt so bad. I can't explain the feeling, Phil. It was so bad. I've never had a feeling like it since. I don't think I ever will. I hope not anyway, because it was just a hollow feeling you had for so long.
I remember when you came in and did the interview ahead of the next season, because obviously there was a lot of talk that you were going to going to leave, and I think you had a couple of weeks where you had a lot of thoughts to yourself about what you wanted to do, and it must be so hard that, you know, anyone from the outside would be looking at it thinking, how can you motivate yourself to go again after that disappointment, let alone, you know, 25, 30 players? How tough was that decision to stay that next season?
Yeah, it was tough. I sort of suggested to the chairman that that might be it. I think I felt that I'd done. I knew we'd sell Gale. And that was the other frustrating thing. I felt we had a real chance in next season. We were added to that squad. We had a good team, a very excellent team. So I said, look, I think I might be done, you know. And he said, what do you mean? I went, I think it's going to be hard for me to go again. And he went, well, why? I went, I just feel that I might need a break. Physically, I was tired, which you're going to be. There's emotions. It wasn't long after we just got relegated. It was like a couple of days. The chairman wanted me to go to America, and I said, I'm not going to America. I need some to just think. So he was initially disappointed by my reaction, but then, you know, I gave it more thought, and I said, look, I owe it to you to everyone to have another go. We were very close. We'll have to rebuild. We'll have to sell Gale and buy. We brought Asim Belonga in. So, well, let's have another go. And that's what happened.
And of course, that season was positive and negative, really, to a certain extent, because obviously we had such great success in the JPT as it was back then, and obviously getting to the playoffs and losing. In terms of the JPT, was that almost, I don't know, not a healing process, but the fact you were able to put a trophy in the cabinet was, you know, so soon after a disappointment must have felt good.
Yeah, I mean, look, once you got over the initial disappointment of the relegation, and we got our head around that, we started again, and, you know, we sold Dwight. I mean, I remember the chairman ringing me. The price Barry got from him was incredible. We bought Asim Belonga in, who was an excellent striker, great lad, very good player. So we thought, okay, we've got a chance. It wasn't doom and gloom once we started back again. You know, so we went again. And we never really got to grips with it, I think, around about the automatic. I don't think we were always fighting around the playoffs. And we did well in the JPT. We obviously went to Swindon and got the semi-final done there. So that was good. It was great going to Wembley. I hated the game at Wembley. I hated it. I thought we were awful, but we won, which was always, you go to a final, you want to win it. And then the big thing was, right, we want to come back here. This is a motivation. So I think going into the last game of the season, we could have had anyone in the playoffs, if you remember. Remember, it could have been anyone. I think there was Leyton Orient, Rotherham, and who was the other one? Who was the other one?
I can't remember who the other one was, but
can't remember who the other one was. So we could have got any three of them, any one of them. So we ended up getting Leyton Orient, and they were having a good season, you know. But I was, again, you got into that game confident. Josie had started hitting form. Washington had started hitting form, and he was scoring goals. And then we got to the final, and I left Connor out and played. Can't mind who it was I played in the hole. Anyway, it was Tom. We played Nicky and Gailey up front. Gailey, and then Tom went. So I got into the first game at home thinking, okay, as long as we win, you know, Asim Belonga puts us ahead, and then they equalised. And to be fair, they played us earlier in the season at our place and battered us. The front two annihilated us. Mooney and the lad that went to Rotherham. Agard, yeah. And they had Cox, and they had the lad that sold, the winger. They had a good team, and they had a bit of experience as well. So we drew the first game 1 each, and then we go into the second game, and Barry Hearn had piped up that his team had already gone through, and so there was a bit of mentioning that to the players. So obviously we lost. It was a very tight affair. I think Cox scored there first, and then they've scored Dagnall scored a breakaway, and then we scored. Connor came on and scored, and then Cox missed an absolute sitter from the corner, and it's over and we're out. So that was another big disappointment, you know.
I think that season, I remember that season. I remember the Oldham game, which I'm sure you remember. And I remember it for two reasons. One, the fact we signed Connor Washington, I think, after that game, after we just been beaten 5-4. I remember Barry ringing me about 6 o'clock saying, "Oh, the Washington deal's done if we can get it out." And I'm thinking, we've just conceded 5 away at Oldham. And obviously, it was such a way to lose that game in terms of where we got to. Was that up there in the most angry, most frustrated you've been at a performance in terms of going from such a high to such a low in 190 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, we'd gone 3-0 up. What do you remember? Then get back to 3-2. Then we went 4-2 up, and then we just collapsed. And I think because of the relegation in the previous season, I thought, I'm going to have another go. I think it was around about Christmas time that game. That is the only time I've never done a press conference after the game in my whole career. And I think I said, it would have been to you or to Kev, you do it. I think there was a miss. I don't think I just came out and said, no one's doing the press. I can't remember, but I knew I said to you, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And I think I could see signs that I was shot. I was knackered. I mentally was, which can happen. You know, I'm not saying, but you know, it was just, it really sat in the bus. I did going on the way back thinking, another disappointment. It was just the way the team went. I just was worried. Anyway, got over that, and you know, went again, and obviously that was a real disappointment, that game. The way we got beat 5-4 in the last minute. You know?
And when you left at the end of that next, was halfway through, wasn't it? The next season, was it sad that it ended at the time that it did and where it did?
Well, what happened then? Once we got to the close season and we'd got beaten in the playoffs, Kev left. So I changed my staff in terms of brought Strax in and Breeny in, so a bit of freshness there. And without a shadow of a doubt, I should have left after the playoffs. But you've got pride. You don't want to leave. You'd rather leave when you sort of done, you've won something, you know. But I felt I'd taken things as far possibly as I could have. And maybe I think if you asked the chairman now, I think he would totally agree that I should have left then. So, listen, you leave on a much happier note, you know. So the next season started, and I was fully deserved to be sacked because I'd take my eye off the ball, no doubt about it. I was tired. I was mentally tired. I was doing things I would never normally do. I was letting so many small things affect me. So all those things added up. I probably, you know, the Milton Keynes game was the catalyst for the chairman to make his decision. We'd gone to Bristol the Tuesday before and got thumped. They were flying at the time. So I remember I texted them, and we got beat 3-0, and I made sure all the players went over to the fans. The fans were unbelievable in the second half, but you know, I was clearly getting things wrong, you know, and I think the players, when they see their manager like that, they had obviously lost a little bit of confidence, and it affected everyone. So the correct decision was made. The decision that I should have made was not start the season, but I did, and I gave it my best. My commitment was always 100%, but I clearly was tired and needed to come out. So I remember on the way back, you know, I'd lambasted the players, and it was an embarrassing performance. They battered us. It could have been a lot more than 3. And I made 2 substitutions after 20 minutes. I brought Michael Smith off and Erhan off, and I could feel the fans having a right go, and it did turn a bit bitter then. And I think everyone sort of thought, well, this is the end. And it didn't. You don't want it to end like that. Of course you don't. And I remember speaking to Carl after the game, Carl Robinson, and having a chat. And then obviously I texted the chairman saying, look, you want to speak? And he went, no, ring me when you get home. So I rang him, and he just went, I'm making a change, I've got to. And I went, okay. And that was it.
Before we wrap this one up, I just wanted to talk about a couple of players before we go into the final part. Lee Tomlin, obviously, an unbelievable player to see in terms of what he could do on the pitch. He went through a period whereby he was getting sent off quite a lot. How difficult was he to manage? Was he someone that you have to manage as a sort of individual rather than, you know, you have to manage him any differently?
He did a bit with Tomo because the ability he had was unbelievable. Very good player, excellent player. But he went through that period where I think he got sent off 3-4 times. I think he got sent off and then came back and got sent off again after suspension. So he discipline had completely gone, and you were losing the player there. But in terms of his ability, he could change a game in a minute. You know, his pace with the ball was better, quicker than without the ball. Great vision for a striker, a dream to play with. Great lad. I got on really well, still do. But he just went through that period where I don't know what period after that was the Celtic thing. How long after that was?
Yeah, around that time, because that Celtic thing, obviously, the chairman spoke about. I mean, for you as a manager, it must have been a nightmare, because I think Celtic made a bid before the game, didn't they? And I remember you talking about it and saying that why are they doing this, you know, on a match day? And I imagine that must have been very hard as a manager to come to a conclusion of what you wanted to do with him.
I remember it very well, because the morning of the game, I got a phone call off Tomo saying, "Look, Celtic have come in for me. I want to speak to them." And I was like, "Don't know anything about it, Tomo." Barry rang me. "Yes, Celtic made a bid." I said, "Well, the boy wants to speak to him." I said, "We've got a game in 3 hours." And I went over. Do you remember the gym at the far side of the back of the stand? I was over there. And it was about, you know, the players normally reported about whatever time. It was a couple of hours before they had to report. And Tomo came over and said, "Look, I want to speak to them." I went, "Yeah, but Tomo, they've only bid buttons." I said, "I can't let you go. I can't let you." And I said, "Look, are you going to be all right to play this game?" And he went, "Yeah." So I probably shouldn't have played it, but I thought, I need him in the team. Can't remember who we were playing.
No, I can't. I just remember the Celtic thing overshadowing everything.
So the chairman was there at the game that day, and we went in his office, and I was down obviously in the touchline, and it was probably difficult for him, because I could have been coming off that game, and the chairman saying to me, "I've just sold them." But obviously he wouldn't do that unless it was a ridiculous bid, and it never got to that. But the fact that Celtic were actually making bids while the game was going on, for a club of that size, it was poor stuff. So I think I brought Tom off at half time, didn't I? Yeah, I did. I brought him off. So he's obviously in the stand knowing that his agent's texting him, the bids are coming in. And after the game, he came to see me in my office, and I said, whenever it was, I said, "Tom, I can't give you permission. They're not bidding enough. They're not going to get to what we want." He smashed something in the room. He's slamming doors. "I'm never going to forgive you. I'm never going to play for you again. You're a disgrace." And I was like, "Okay, all right, well, let's get it. We may as well get it all out." And then he left. And about an hour later, he phoned me and apologised. Or something like that. He apologised anyway, because that's what told me out was fine. And then it went away. But that period, it was difficult for him, because it's a massive club, but they just never got anywhere near. And the way they did it didn't help, you know.
And around that sort of time, obviously, you know, I'd imagine there were bids for players that didn't, as I say, didn't get to the level that you were sort of after. Were you concerned? I suppose it's more after the Championship campaign and maybe the playoff campaign that you're going to lose the players you wanted to keep. Was there ever a worry that, you know, the whole squad was going to be disbanded?
No, I didn't feel that was the case. There was obviously, as it is, there's always interest in our players, which is a good thing. But no, I didn't get that feeling at all. You know, we had some good talent in the squad, and we try to keep it together as best we can, really.
And just finally, before we wrap up this particular part, obviously, when you left Peterborough that second time, I think you went on record to say you were never going to be a third time or anything along those lines. Did you feel that was the slate finished for this particular club?
Yes, I think the way it ended wasn't good. Not between the chairman and I, because it was very good the way that ended, and everyone else for that matter. It didn't end great with me and the players, because we just beat 3-0, and I've completely lambasted them, and all of a sudden they don't see me again because I'm gone. But I think it was a little bit bitterness with me. I don't know if bitterness is the right word, but I think the way it ended with the fans and that day, and Milton Keynes and think there were lots saying, you know, you're going to get sacked in the morning. It wasn't nice, you know, to hear that, but probably justified. So yeah, that's a bit sad the way it ended. I've got to be honest.